Okay. All right. So we have Anurag and someone with the roll number, I don't know your name, and also Kamindra, right? Three of you. We'll discuss on clauses today, but before I share the screen or start off with the exercise, I would like to take a stock from you on how much do you know about the kinds of sentences? That is, do you know what compound sentences and complex sentences and simple sentences are? Are you clear with that part? Because
Yes, ma'am.
understanding of the clauses is very, very important. And for that, you also need to know these differences, right? As we understand them, simple, compound, and complex. Does everyone know, or do you have confusion? So, if I have, say, a compound sentence, or say, let's begin with simple sentence, right? Uh, what would be the structure of a simple sentence? What do you expect structurally for a simple sentence to have?
There is a single verb and subject.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So basically, there's one subject, right? And then there's one verb. You're right. Right? There's a single verb present in that. Subject, object, verb is the word order. Yes. But more importantly, like you mentioned, you will have at least one verb, right? Without one verb, you cannot have a simple sentence done, right? And this is essentially why sometimes you call a clause also as a sentence. The difference between the phrase and clause is that phrases appear without any verb, right, or a subject. It can be simply, any kind of phrase. Like if I say a good boy, this is an adjective phrase, right? Or I say looks at the mountain, this is a verb phrase. Or if I simply say at on the mountain, this is a prepositional phrase. So this doesn't have a subject, doesn't have a verb in it, right? Even in the verb phrase, though it carries a verb, it doesn't have a subject. So these are then phrases, and if any of these phrases have a subject and a verb both, and in the case of the verb phrase, a subject, then they become a clause, right? So a simple sentence is essentially a clause, right? So sometimes they're also referred to as sentence clauses. Okay, that being said, what is a compound sentence? With respect to, verbs in the sentence, what can you say?
Then there are two verbs which refer to the single
Yeah.
subject and these are joined by conjunctions.
They needn't necessarily refer to a single subject. They can be more than one subject also. And it is not always two verbs, right? There should be at least two verbs. Or in other way, you can say that there should be more than one verb in the sentence, right? More than one verb in the sentence so that you can have a compound sentence. That is first condition. And the second condition would definitely be that there should be the presence of a coordinating conjunction. Now, you know what coordinating conjunctions are from your English 1 course, right? That should be known to you. What are coordinating conjunctions? Just give me examples. Clear, right? Okay,
Ma'am,
and
and
or
but
yeah, and but or either, right? All of them constitute coordinating conjunctions. Why are they called so? Because they're definitely like other kinds of conjunctions. Their work or their task or their function is to join two parts or two different sentences, right? But when that happens, what happens? Both or maybe more than that, say you have three or four sentences. If that's the case, then all the four different sentences are going to have equal status. Like if I say I am going to college and I will go to the market. So you have two separate different sentences. They are both independent sentences, right? Both are independent clauses. Voice is breaking. Is that so?
now it is fine.
Okay. So Okay, so you will have two or three or four or five, but if they are joined together by coordinating conjunctions, uh, essentially all the four or five or how much ever you have, okay, how many ever you have, they're all going to have an independent status. They'll all be at the equal levels. Or to put the other way around, one won't be dependent on the other to complete its need. That is how coordinating conjunctions function. Okay. All right. Now, complex sentence, the reverse of this, right? What happens? You will have um, at least you need to have at least one independent clause and one dependent clause for complex sentence to happen, right? And they're both of these parts are going to be, that is the independent one and the dependent one, are going to be joined using a subordinating conjunction. Any examples that you can give me of subordinating conjunctions?
And if
What are some of,
then,
yeah, if and then more common ones maybe? That, because, which, who, where, when, right? All of them are examples of subordinating conjunctions, right? Some of them may have some other kind of technical names like a relative pronoun, so on and so forth, but they essentially function as subordinating conjunctions, right? Uh, okay. So now, what is the difference here between compound and complex sentence? That the status of the parts that are joined by the subordinating conjunctions are different. They are not at par. They are not equal. One is certainly dependent on the other. So the dependent part of the sentence, which includes the subordinating conjunction, is referred to as the dependent clause, okay, or the subordinate clause, or in some cases also the embedded clause, right? Uh, the other part, which is not dependent, right, which can stand on its own, it doesn't require the other part to complete its sense, that's called the independent clause or main clause. Okay. Or maybe in the lecture somewhere you might have also heard the name principal clause and matrix clause, right? So matrix is same as dependent. Principal is the main clause. All right. So that's how it works. Okay. Uh, all that part clear, right? Simple, component, complex. This part is important for you to then launch into a more deeper understanding of clauses. Okay. I hope that is clear for you. Now we'll get back to our exercises and we'll discuss our other clauses based on the we have there. Okay. So just give me a moment. I'll show this. Just confirm with me when you can see the screen clearly. Are you able to see the screen? Let me change the screen visible.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So let's look at this one, types of subordinate clauses, right? That's what is going to be important for you in the exam. We'll have some good amount of questions from that side. So you need to understand, first thing first, one should know which part of the given sentence is subordinate clause, and the other part is that you should know what kind of subordinate clauses, right? So to identify a subordinate clause, very easy. You need to locate which one is the subordinating conjunction in the sentence. So beginning with the subordinating conjunction towards the end, right? By which I also mean to say that in a subordinate clause or a dependent clause, you should make sure that the conjunction is always a part of it, right? So beginning from the subordinating conjunction to wherever it ends is going to be your subordinate clause, right? A marker or an easy way to understand what your subordinate clause is to look for the subordinating conjunction, right? So let's take an example, the first one, and try and understand a couple of these things. The first sentence: everybody knows that he is an able instructor. So, since the question is on understanding the type of subordinate clauses, uh, some kind of marking is already done on what the subordinate clause is, right? Can you tell me what the subordinate clause is in the sentence? Everybody knows that he is an evil instructor.
The highlighted one that he is an able instructor.
That he is an evil instructor, right? It's marked for you already, but pronouns, right? Demonstrative terms, this, that, these, those, right? So this can also be used as a demonstrative pronoun, but you should understand that when you're looking at the sentences, please make sure that you don't end up marking a pronoun that as a subordinating condition. Check what follows it also to make sure whether you are using the right one. I think we should have a question like that somewhere in the exercise. So uh, but before we get there, I am just letting you know that in English or even in other languages, what happens when you're discussing functional category lexicons, functional category words like that or on or after, before, all of these are called functional words, right? Because they don't have a meaning if they are taken out of the sentence, right? Only when you place it in the sentence can they give you full meaning. They are not like, your nouns or verbs or anything which can make sense on its own. Now, the problem with such words is they can have multiple categories, right? Like, for example, after can be used as an adverb, after can also be used as a preposition, after can also be used as a conjunction, right? So they can have multiple categories. Similarly, for that, it can be used as a pronoun, it can also be used as a subordinating conjunction. So when you're looking at the sentence, make sure that you are tapping on the right category. Here, that is used as a conjunction. Everybody knows that he is an able instructor. Here, it is not the pronoun, right? Okay.
Excuse me,
So,
ma'am.
that he is an able instructor here. Yes.
Ma'am,
Yes.
you told about demonstrative pronouns. At that time, your voice faded away. Please explain that.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you properly. What did you say? Is it because my network has an issue, or is it because you?
Ma'am, just 1 minute ago, you explained about the demonstrative pronouns. That time your voice fade away. Could you please explain that again?
All right, I can say that again, but is it okay now? Yes, no? Are you able to hear me now clearly, or is there still a problem?
Ma'am, after 3 4 minutes, your voice, some words are not audible.
Yeah, yeah. That could probably be because of the weather. Okay. Tell me if it is better now. Is it okay now, or there's still a problem?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Sorry. Actually, your voice is also breaking. I'm just trying to figure out if it is because of my bad connection or it's because of you. Others, anybody? Let me just confirm with someone. Wait. Okay, is it audible? You can hear. Okay. So, see, if people can hear, then shouldn't be a problem. In case it is fading away or something, the issue is I'm sharing it from my phone. So I'm not able to see your chats regularly. Uh, anyway, if it is too much of a trouble, then someone else let me know. If it is just continuously for one person, probably, you check your connection. Are you able to hear me clearly now? At least this much that I've said? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So we'll get back there. Okay. We'll get back. Um, oh, just a second. I think I've lost the link to the document. Just give me a moment. I'll do it. Okay. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Okay. So um, I'll go a little quickly because I want to finish off at least that first part with you today, because we won't get many classes before you go to the exam. So, the first question that we were discussing, everybody knows that he's an able instructor. So, we are done with the detection part of the subordinate clause, right? So, that he's an able instructor. I also told you why we would consider that particular part as uh, the subordinate clause. Now, what you were asking about was, I think, that. So, what I meant to say is that as a word in English is a functional word, right? So the speciality of functional words like that, another example would be after, another would be early or before, these words are called functional words because they do not have, any real world references, unlike, say noun phrases. So if I say car or fan or pen or something, there is a real world reference to all of that. So whichever words that do not have that kind of reference available in the real world, we call them functional words, like that, after, early, so on and so forth. Grammatically, these words are very important because they could be confusing since they can be found in multiple categories, right? This is what I meant. So, like after can be used both as preposition and an adverb, and also sometimes as conjunction, right? A subordinating conjunction. So similarly, that can be used both as a demonstrative pronoun in the sense, I can say that girl, this girl, right? So in that sense, that girl, right? So it's a demonstrative pronoun there. Hmm? But in this case, it is used as a subordinating conjunction. So when you are solving sentences, you make sure what follows these words and what goes before this to determine whether it is used as a pronoun or whether it is used as a subordinating conjunction. If it is followed by a clause, like in this case, right, he is an able instructor, then definitely you can make up your mind to say that this is a subordinating conjunction, right? So do the scrutiny also to the sentence while you are solving. Don't just, straight away, just because you saw that, don't just go ahead and mark it as subordinate clause. Just check it, right? That's all I. Okay. I hope that's understood. Now, the other part of it about what kind of clause this is, right? Uh, do you want to do some guessing? Do you want to try and answer since you have watched the lectures already? What clause is this? What type of subordinate clause that he is an able instructor?
Adjectival clause.
The adverbial
Okay.
clause.
So that is, okay. So why adjectival
Adjective
clause? Okay.
describing
Why
about a
adjectival
person.
clause? Which person?
Describing about the person.
Which person? We don't have any person here. So So if it has to be an adjectival clause, then you're right, it needs to provide additional information or describe about a noun, right? And that noun has to go right before it. It cannot be somewhere else. It cannot be misplaced elsewhere in the sentence. And if it is an adverbial clause, then it has to give you information about how the information connected with adverb is mostly about the verb, how it has happened, when it has happened, where it has happened, or if it is something that gives you a condition or reason, right, or a purpose, then it's adverbial. We don't have either of this here. Everybody knows that he's an able instructor. Now listen to me carefully. If I ask the question, everybody knows what, then what would be the answer to it in this case? Everybody knows what?
He is an able instructor.
That he's an able instructor. Don't forget about it. Okay, that he's an able instructor, right? Can I replace that particular subordinate clause with something else? Like say one word. Everybody knows dash, for example. Can I replace it with some other single word? It needn't be, similar in meaning to the clause that's given. It could be anything. Say, for example, I say everybody knows him, or I can say everybody knows English, right? Is it possible for me to do that replacement here? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, right? And when I replace, like say I say English, or I say him, or her, or whatever, what category of words are these? Meaning,
Pronoun.
what part of speech this? It's a pronoun, and English is what? It's a noun, right?
Yes.
So now listen to this carefully here. If it is replaceable by a noun or a pronoun, if your whole clause is replaceable by a noun or a pronoun, then your subordinate clause is definitely a noun clause. What kind of clause is it? It's a subordinate clause, but it's a noun subordinate clause. Got it? So
Yes, ma'am.
that he's an able inspector, this particular subordinate clause is an object of the verb know. Right? You see the know here. Know is a transitive verb. It requires an object to complete its sense. And that object is this whole clause. Okay. And that is one reason. And also the second reason being the clause can be replaced with something that's a noun or a pronoun. Or to put it the other way, something which has nominal qualities, name-like quality. Right? So this is the noun clause there. Understood? Any confusions? Anybody? No? Okay. So if that is understood, then you should also know if nouns, in this sentence we have used a full subordinate clause instead of a noun, right, to take up the space of the object of the verb name. Same thing can be done to the subject also. Like everybody, in place of everybody, also you can use some other subordinate clause and convert that one word subject everybody into a clause like subject. That's also possible. What I'm trying to say is wherever in a sentence you find a noun, it is replaceable with a noun clause. Okay. Either it is a single word like everybody, which is a pronoun, or it is, something like a clause, which is that he is an able instructor. So if in the object position you can place the subordinate clause, then we can also do the same in the subject position. I'll give you examples when and where we meet with it. But because we are discussing nominal qualities, clauses, noun clauses, I'm just telling you, if it is possible for us to replace the object as a subordinate clause, the same can be done to the subject also, because both are nouns, right? Subject and object both have noun qualities, right? Okay. Any doubts there? All right. Okay. Now let's go to the next one. He saw the trouble that wrong companionship can cause. If you have understood what I have been talking about, then try and answer this particular question. Tell me what type of subordinate clause it is. The clause is already marked for you. Just let me know what type of clause would this be. He saw the trouble that wrong companionship can cause.
Adjectival clause.
So why is this an adjectival clause? You're right.
Name it describes about the trouble.
Correct. Okay. So see this. You have the subordinate clause that wrong companionship can cause. And what is it related to? It is related to the noun, the trouble. Okay. So it is giving you additional information of what kind of trouble, trouble that wrong companionship can cause. So this is an adjectival clause, right? Because the noun, the trouble is being described. Okay. All right. Now, this third one is a different kind of clause. Let me see if you're able to identify that. Just thinking about the final round put him in a competitive mood. Just thinking about the final round put him in a competitive mood. Not a different one, something that we already discussed. If you had followed that discussion, you should be able to answer. Just thinking about the final round put him in a competitive mood. Anybody? If you're typing out it in the chat, then I probably am not seeing it. Not probably, I'm not seeing it because I cannot go back to that. Otherwise, you'll lose your screen. What is it? Is it adjective, adverb, noun? What kind of clause is it? You can still hear me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So see, look at this one. All we have done is, you tell me what the verb in this sentence is. Third one. What is the verb here?
Input.
Put, right? Put. Put is your verb here, right? And what is your object here?
In a competitive mood.
Him in a competitive mode, right? That part. Okay. Uh, what is this part then? Just thinking about the final round. What put him in a competitive mode? Just thinking about the final round, right? So this is your subject, right? That whole clause, just thinking about the final round is what? It's your subject. And it is replacing a subject means what kind of clause it has to be?
Noun clause.
Null clause.
Noun clause, right? Noun clause. If it is replacing a subject or an object, or let's not use the word replace, if it stands in the place of a subject or an object, giving nominal qualities to the elements in both these places, then it is definitely a noun clause, right? In the first sentence, it was occupying the object position. Now the clause has taken the subject position, right? That's the only difference. So this is also a noun clause then. Okay. Uh, We'll skip the fourth one. I'll come back to that. But because we are discussing this, let's look at the fifth one. Learning a foreign language is no easy task. What clause is this? Learning a foreign language?
Noun
Noun
clause.
clause.
Noun clause. Huh? Noun clause, right? Okay. So this is also a noun clause. That's how you're going to analyze the sentences, right? Okay. Now we look at the fourth one. Dressed in street clothes, Simona and friends strolled in the garden. I have not marked the subordinate clause here on purpose because I wanted to figure it out. Dressed in street clothes, Simona and friends strolled in the garden.
Dressed in street clothes, Samana and friends.
That's your subordinate clause. Okay, I take it.
Dressed in street clothes.
And dressed in street clothes is your subordinate clause. Yes. That's right. Because Sumona and friends strolled in the garden. Uh, that's a full sentence. It's an independent clause. It has a compound subject, Sumona and friends, yet it has only one verb and it's a full sentence. It's a complete sentence. So whatever remains is your subordinate clause. What kind of clause is it?
Adverbial.
Uh, why is it adverbial? Why would that be considered adverbial?
It describing about reason behind stroll.
No, it does not give you any reason. You are right in some sense, but your answer is not right. The reason you gave is not right.
Ma'am, it describes
Hmm.
about the verb
How?
stroll.
Correct. It describes how, right? It tells you how. Dressed in street clothes, Simona and friends strolled in the garden. So, in other sense, it tells you in the manner, right? So, when we are talking about manner, then definitely it has to be adverb. Now, one problem with adverbial uh, clauses, they sometimes appear like this. They may not give you a proper coordinating conjunctions or something, right? But we'll have to guess it from the context and the meaning of the sentence that it gives you, right? So that guesswork has to be done in the case of this. Only this problem exists with just adverbial, because when you have adverbs in the sentence or adverbial phrases and clauses, every time the conjunction part, the subordinating conjunction part may not be available, right? So here, the guesswork had to be done that, okay, it's about how the, strolling has happened, right? So because it's answered the question how, or rather the question of the manner in which the action has taken place, uh, this would be considered an adverbial clause. Okay. Any question? Okay. So fifth one we did. Sixth one, the only problem in work is to relate work to people's needs. The only problem in work is to relate work to people's needs. Hmm. Any answers? The only problem in work is to relate work to people's needs.
Noun clause.
Noun clause, right? Why is it a noun clause? Because it's occupying the position of the object, right? The only problem in work is what? ACC or verb. And what follows it is the complement or the object, as we can call it, which is taken up by to relate work to people's needs. So that whole part is what? It's acting as a noun clause. Okay. Any question? Any confusions, anyone?
Ma'am,
I'm not
how to
going
find
to
subordinate clause and noun clause?
how to find subordinate clause. You'll have to look for subordinating conjunction, or in other sense, you'll have to see a part of the sentence which is not a word or a phrase and is a clause. Okay. So for that, you need to know what a
Okay.
clause is. A clause should essentially have only, should have a subject and a verb, or at least a verb in it, right? If one of this condition is satisfied, then it is a clause, right? So that will help you marking, figure out which part of the sentence is a subordinate clause, right? In every case, like I told you, you may not have a subordinating conjunction. If it is there, well and good. Otherwise, you will have to read the sentence and figure it out. Right? In this case, we did it because we know that after this, there has to be an object. We don't have it. And I mean, we have it, but it's not a singular word. There's a set of words which has a verb in it. And so that's the clause. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Excuse
Okay,
me, ma'am.
seventh one. We should, yes, go ahead.
Ma'am, if we put question using the word what and we get the answer, then it is going to be a noun clause. Like in the
Ah,
Sixth
Yes,
one.
yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Seventh one, I believe that a hot, humid summer has benefited the hotel business. I believe that a hot, humid summer has benefited the hotel business. This is also easy. If you've understood the concept, then you can answer. Is it adjectival?
No.
No. Right? Adverbial? Doesn't tell you anything about manner, place, time, anything, right? So you can ask the question, I believe what? Right? I believe that
Yes, ma'am.
a hot.
Adverbial.
Yeah, so this is not adverbial. You can ask the question what, then it has to be a noun clause. I believe what? That I believe that a hot, humid summer has benefited the hotel business.
And then time
So
is given, no? Summer
no. That is not the time.
and
See, if
time
it is
period.
time, then there has to, no. If it is a time, then there has to be a time marker, like when or something. Right? That is not available. If that is there, then you can go ahead
Okay.
and mark it as time. Okay. Here, that's not the case. So this is also a case of noun clause, taking up the position of the object of the verb believe. Hmm? Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Got it.
Eighth, all right. Eighth one, I listened to what his friend had to say. I listened to what his friend had to say. Say it is marked from to what. You can avoid that one and then take the rest of it. I think I'd use this to teach the embedded clause also for the last batch. That's why that's also um, bolded. But say, I listened to what his friend had to say. Um,
Ma'am, noun clause it is.
yeah, this is also noun clause, yes, you're right. Because, again, it is occupying the place of the object,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
You can replace that whole part with something else that is nominal or noun-like. So again, a noun clause. Okay. Anybody, any doubts or questions as of now?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So ninth one, he gave his parents what they wanted.
Adverbial.
Why is it adverbial? I'm not saying it is right or wrong. I'm just asking why is it adverbial? Okay, so for this now, you'll have to focus. It's the same thing, but it's just that, the verb is a little different. What kind of a verb is give? It is a ditransitive verb, which means it can take two objects, right? I gave a book to him. So I have two objects here. My direct object is book, and my indirect object is what? Him, right? So in this case also, again, give is used and it's a ditransitive verb. So that there are going to be two objects, right? In this case, your direct object, okay, is in the form of a clause. And that clause is what they wanted. Okay, so he gave something to his parents, right? So parents, then his parents become the indirect object. And whatever he gave is your direct object. And that particular part is occupied by the clause, what they wanted. See this? So which means I can replace it with something. He gave, what he gave gifts to his parents. Uh, he gave a good news to his parents. Right? He gave good news to his parents, anything. Technically, what I'm saying is I can replace it with a noun, right? So this one is also then what? What kind of clause? Noun clause. Noun clause, right? So there are these, small intricacies that might come up. They're not really intricacies. If you pay little attention to the verbs, then it is possible. In case of clauses and their identification, the main part would be looking at the verb, right? Or like you say, the subject, verb, and the object. Pay closer, pay closer attention to how they are, understand what they are, and then you'll be easily able to segregate them as well as try and identify what type of clauses they are, right? Okay. So what they wanted then is a, direct object. Objects have noun-like qualities, hence this is a noun clause. Simple. Next one. 10th one. Whoever said that does not understand the question. Whoever said that does not understand the question. Whoever said that does not understand the question. Let me ask you one question. What is that used as in this sentence? Is it a conjunction or is it a pronoun?
Ma'am, it is pronoun.
It's a pronoun, right? Whoever said that, something, we don't know what it is. Okay, does not understand the question. Now, what is this clause? Whoever said that, what type of clause? Very easy this is. So I can replace, no, I can say, Nino does not understand the question. He does not understand the question. Right? I can replace whoever said that with some noun or a pronoun. Right? So again, this is what it's a noun clause.
Ma'am,
Ah, noun clause. Right? This may appear in different forms and all that, right? So because we cannot give you a list of how different kinds of sentences can be constructed with the available words in English, we tell you the functional method to do that. So we use the same thing that I've been discussing in all the other questions also. Same technique. You're looking at it and seeing whether it can be replaced with a noun or a pronoun, right? Whether it appears in the subject or the object position. So these are 2 or 3 tests you do, and then figure whether it's a noun clause or something else, right? Someone who's more, seasoned and is more used to the language would immediately understand what it is. But if there are technical part that we need understanding on, then these are some of the ways in which you can grammatically identify these things in a sentence. Okay. Okay. Now let's
sorry,
move
ma'am.
on to the level. Sorry.
Ma'am,
Any
I
question?
want to know. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, if there is a gerund involved in the sentence, then that going to be a noun clause.
Sorry. Again. Come again.
Ma'am, if there is a gerund involved in a sentence, then
Ah,
that is going to be a noun clause.
noun clause.
Like just thinking about the final
Hmm.
noun, put him in a completed.
So like you had that sentence, no, learning a foreign language, right? There essentially that ing is a participle, meaning gerund. So yes, that can also appear as a part of the clause. And yeah, most of the times it has to be a noun clause, unless specified otherwise.
Okay.
Okay. Gerunds are they are nouns or they behave like nouns. So if yes, you find them in a sentence, then certainly they are. Uh, in a clause, then they are noun clauses. Okay. All
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
So 11th one, we have, I think, 5 of them. We should be able to finish them. Uh, drugs that are used in chemotherapy damage a patient's healthy cells as well. Drugs that are used in chemotherapy damage a patient's healthy cells as well.
Adverbial clause.
Yeah,
Okay,
adjective
what am I?
clause.
Okay, so why adjectival? Why adverbial? The adverbial person can go first. Why do you think it's an adverbial clause?
And because we can ask like that where drugs are used.
Mm-hmm. where drugs are used, but if you're asking a question where, then it should give you a location, right? That are used in chemotherapy is
Okay.
not a location. Ah, right. So your answer is adjectival, right? The reason being, so whoever answered adjectival, can you explain that to us? Why did you say adjectival?
It describes the subject, the drugs.
Drugs, right? So drugs that are used in chemotherapy, you're right. So it is giving you additional information, or it is describing the subject, or let's just call it drugs, right? Which is a noun. Provides additional information about that part of the sentence. Hence, it's an adjectival clause, right? So any clause that provides additional information about a noun in the given clause, right? Whether subject or object or anything else in between, they are called adjectival clauses. Okay, so drugs, what kind of drugs? Drugs that are used in chemotherapy. Okay, all right. Now, 12th one. The doctors battled a deadly virus fueled by a lackadaisical public.
Again, adjective. Yes.
Again, adjectival, right? Fueled by a lackadaisical public. What kind of deadly virus? A virus that was fueled by lackadaisical public. Now, here again, in cases of adjectival clauses, some clauses may not have, like in the case of adverbial clause, a subordinating conjunction. This is an example of that. Right? It directly goes to fueled by lackadaisical public. It doesn't say that is fueled by a lackadaisical public, like you saw in the previous case, right? There you had that are used in chemotherapy. 12th one doesn't have a subordinating conjunction. But even in the absence of the conjunction, the adjectival clause is very clearly defined, right? So keep that also in mind. It's a different topic of discussion. We call them the restrictive and non-restrictive clauses. I don't think you have it for your syllabus, so I'm not getting into that and complicating it for you. Instead, just keep in mind that try and analyze the subordinate clause for what it is doing to which element in the sentence to decide on what type of clause it is. Okay. 13th one. Scientists found no evidence to suggest that neutrinos have mass. Scientists found no evidence to suggest that neutrinos have mass. So this is a case of an embedded clause. There are two clauses involved here, but I would be happy if you can just tell me what your between adjectival, adverbial, and noun clauses. If you can give me whatever is involved here, I think I'll be okay with it. So the actual subordinate clauses to suggest that neutrinos have mass, but that won't be an example of. Okay, you first tell me, then I think I'll tell you about it later. Let's say that neutrinos have mass is your subordinate clause. Let's for the time being keep to suggest aside. Then what kind of clause is it? Scientists found no evidence to suggest that neutrinos have mass. What clause is this? Noun clause, right? So you can see that scientists found no evidence to suggest what. So basically, you get an answer to the question what, and it has to be a noun clause, right? Or that neutrinos have mass can be replaced with something that is a noun or a pronoun like, right? Mostly noun like, not pronoun. Okay. Now, what does this to suggest? That would also be considered a subordinate clause, but a different kind of subordinate clause. Right? It's called an infinitival clause. Okay. So infinitival clause because there is a verb, so to speak, right? There is suggest. But then what kind of verb is it? It is an infinitive verb, to infinitive, right? It is to suggest, right? So if in a sentence you have something like this in the form to plus the verb, then it's an infinitive verb. Hence, if that verb is part of a larger clause, then we call it an infinitival clause, right? So the whole of that part to suggest that neutrinos have mass, they are it's considered a subordinate clause, but only from that neutrinos have mass would be considered as a noun clause. So it's an embedded clause. There's a larger infinitival clause, which is to suggest that neutrinos have mass. Within that infinitival clause, you have a noun clause, which is that neutrinos have mass. Okay. So if you have heard the lecture on embedded clause, this is what an embedded clause means. A clause within a clause. And in English or in any other languages, your real life sentences are mostly of this nature, right? A lot of embedded clauses within a sentence. Understood that part? Any questions? All right. Okay, so if you have any question, you may ask. For the time being, I think it's understood, right? So embedded clause is basically clause within clause. Okay. Okay.
The
Now,
13th one
14th one.
involves the noun clause or
The 13th one it has two subordinate clauses. One is the whole of to suggest that neutrinos have mass. That is your infinitive clause, right? And within that clause, you have that neutrinos have mass. Only that part would be considered the noun clause. Okay. Fine.
the answer to this question is going to be noun clause to suggest that neutrons have mass.
No. So if it is underlined from that neutrinos have mass, then it is going to be a noun clause. If it is underlined from to suggest that neutrinos have mass, then it would be infinitival clause. Okay.
It cannot be adjectival, adverbial, or noun clause.
No, it
To
is not
suggest that.
adjectival. No, it is not adjectival because it does not fulfill the function of an adjectival clause or an adverbial clause. Okay. Okay. So 14th one again. When a heart attack occurs, the electronic device automatically produces charges of electricity that jolt the heart back into a normal rhythm. So you have two clauses again, like we were talking about. This is, however, not an embedded clause. There are two different dependent clauses in the sentence. But what type of clauses are they? The first one is when a heart attack occurs. What type of subordinate clause? What is it?
Then adverbial clause
When
because
a
it
heart
refers time. Then
Correct. So adverbial clause, like when a heart attack occurs, right? Someone was answering for the previous sentence, no? I think she answered it as adverbial clause. So keep this in mind. This is an example of an adverbial clause which indicates time, right? When a heart attack occurs, right? Similarly, if it's a place, then ideally it should have the conjunction where. But even in the absence of that, if it directs towards a particular location or space, then you can go ahead and mark it as adverbial clause. Okay, so when a heart attack occurs, indicates time, is an adverbial clause. Now, the last part, that jolt the heart back into a normal rhythm. What kind of subordinate clause is that?
time clause.
What clause? Sorry.
Adjectival clause.
Correct. Adjectival clause. And what is the clause modifying here? Which part of the sentence? Which noun, I mean? Charges of electricity, right? So charges of electricity is the noun which is being modified by the subordinate clause that jolt the heart back into a normal rhythm. Hence, it's an adjectival clause. Okay. Right. Now, the last one for today, we'll continue the discussion on this for a little while in the next class as well before we take up adverb. Um, but for today, I think we'll stop with this one, this question, right? So last one, reflecting on the past 3 years, she wondered whether she could have made better decisions. Sorry for the background noise. This is closer to a highway. So, uh, right. So reflecting on the past 3 years, she wondered whether she could have made better decisions.
Both
Any
are noun
answers?
clause.
Both are noun clause. Okay.
Yes, both are noun clause. Yes,
Both are not noun clauses. One of it is a noun clause. Can you tell me which one? The last one is definitely a noun clause. She wondered what. So whether she could have made better decisions, that part is your noun clause. Although it has whether in it, it is not an adverbial clause, right? You see there are some traps lying there in the sentence as well. She wondered whether she could have made better decisions. Again, this can be treated only as a noun clause, right? Uh, but what about reflecting on the past 3 years? Reflecting on the past 3 years. What kind of clause? So it answers the question how, right? Reflecting on the past 3 years. So what kind of clause then would it be? If it answers the question how for you? Basically manner, right? Yeah? Anyone?
then it's
Then
adverbial
it has to be
clause.
adverbial, right? If it is referring to how or the manner in which an action has happened, then definitely it is adverbial clause, right? And remember, in writing, most of the sentences, sometimes to add more context, like especially to talk about how something happened or where something happened, when something happened. This kind of clauses are usually attached in the beginning of sentences. If it appears in that way, answering the questions when, how, where, the reason or the condition, so on and so forth, then it has to be adverbial clause. Okay. So this is an example of an adverbial clause of manner, reflecting on the past 3 years. And whether she could have made better decisions would be a noun clause. Okay. All right, so we'll close for today, but in case you have any doubts or questions regarding this, you can access this file from your supplementary tab section, go through it. And if there are still doubts, you can come back to the next session and ask me and get it cleared. Okay. All right, so good for today. Can we close? I have another session to start. So if we don't have any questions, then we'll close. Okay.